Hi everyone, I'm Chris Hernandez, City Communications Director. This is the weekly report. It's pretty gorgeous weather, spring, summer's on the way, right? You're getting out the grill, getting it ready to get fired up, and maybe you already did that for a KC Hearts event, the very first one, where we tailgated citywide. KC Hearts was created by a fun-loving, Kansas City-loving group of creatives to encourage residents to participate in fun, citywide activities while we still stay physically apart. So every week, KC Hearts will bring together Kansas Cityans to share positive vibes and community spirit. This week's event will take place on Friday, May 1st, that's May Day, and you can get out your artistic side by sharing a heart with your neighbors, friends, put one up in the window of your house or your apartment. Show the world that we have heart here in Kansas City. And you can find more information at kchearts.com or go to their Facebook page, KC Hearts This. A memorial service was held this week in honor of EMT Billy Birmingham, our first responder and our first city employee to die from COVID-19. It was a procession throughout the city as he was then laid to rest. The firefighter's memorial fountain had been turned on early in recognition of his life and his service, and then on the day of his funeral service, which was only for the family of course, firefighters did line the entire processional route to the cemetery. And KC Honor Flight flew the Missing Man formation. We appreciate your service, Billy Birmingham. With the end of the fiscal year comes another high-level retirement at City Hall. Congratulations on your service to Sherry McIntyre, our Public Works Director. She was the first female director of our Public Works Department, and her many accomplishments over 18 years with the city and 30 years in public service include the launch of KC Streetcar, an entirely new Go KC sidewalk program after voters approved the Go KC bonds, and the installation of several complete streets projects, including the region's first parking-protected bike lane on Armour Boulevard. Did you know that our city's coronavirus webpage has links that will help you if you need social services during this time? Just go to kcmo.gov/coronavirus and click on the Assistance tab. We also have information about jobs, food banks, and mental health services. You may have heard that the city has a hiring freeze in place right now, but we are still hiring for critical positions. That includes positions in the health department. We also have positions available in water services and aviation. These are critical positions to help us keep the city operating. Plus, we have a number of summer positions for the Parks Department, like lifeguards. New openings are posted each Monday, and you can apply online. Just go to kcmo.gov/jobs and check out those positions, especially if you're out of work right now. From our hearts to yours, thank you for watching the Weekly Report. Keep following the KC Hearts events to participate as a metro-wide community. I'm Chris Hernandez. This is the Weekly Report.
Hi, my name is Kevin LaPointe. I'm the City Forester for Kansas City, and I'm here with an Earth Day, everyday tip for you. Plant a tree. Trees add curb appeal to your home, but the value of trees economically and environmentally goes way beyond that. Strategically, planting a tree in your yard can lower your energy bills. Planting leafy trees on the southwest corner of your home can provide shade from the hot summer sun, keeping your home cooler. When the weather cools, the leaves fall off. They let the sun through to help keep your home warmer during the winter. Plant evergreen trees on the northwest side of your home to block those cold winter winds. Trees reduce stormwater runoff and soil erosion. Trees catch rainwater on their leaves, slowing it down as it heads towards the ground. The roots of trees make pathways for the rain to filter deeper into the soil, so more water enters into the ground and less enters our storm sewers. Tree roots also grab onto the soil, holding it in place and reducing soil erosion during those large storm events. Trees improve air quality. Trees absorb carbon dioxide and other pollutant gases through their leaves and produce oxygen for us to breathe. A typical hardwood tree can absorb over a ton of carbon dioxide in its lifetime. Studies even show that planting trees can help reduce the rate of asthma and other respiratory diseases. And besides improving air quality, trees provide shade that cools the air and reduces your exposure to ultraviolet rays. If you'd like to learn more about how to make everyday Earth Day, please go to our website, kcmo.gov/Earth Day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Van Ryn. I'm the new Environmental Manager with Kansas City Parks and Rec.
I'm LEHRBAUM, the Program Manager for Kansas City Wildlands with Bridging the Gap.
We're here at Hidden Valley Park, the natural area, and we're going to look at a few spring ephemerals and some spring flowers. So right off the bat, we have this one right here. This little umbrella looking leaf on it is mayapple, and it will produce a yellow and a white flower with a yellow center on it. It produces a fruit in a few weeks here that box turtles like to eat, and then they spread the seed around. We also have this purple flower over here. That is Sweet William. It's a great landscape plant. You can get them and plant them in your yard. They spread slowly. Really nice purple flower. And this is a pawpaw. It's flowering right here. It's not fully flowered yet. It'll be purple when it's up. And then right here is gooseberry. And this is flowering. It's not a very showy flower, but we saw a zebra swallowtail out here getting nectar off of it. And it produces berries that you can make a nice pie out of, gooseberry pie.
Right here we have a real famous spring ephemeral flower. This one's called Dutchman's breeches. It's got this beautiful ferny leaf to it, but the most fun part are these strings of white flowers that look like the breeches of a Dutchman. Behind here, you'll see a lot of what makes Hidden Valley real famous botanically. This is a fern. This one's called a maiden's hair fern, I believe. There's actually 9 species of fern out here, including some that are along the valley wall that are huge, really beautiful when you can spot them.
So come join us at Hidden Valley Park.
Come explore.
Good afternoon, Facebook Live viewers. My name is Caitlin and this is Derek, and we are coming to you today from the Resource Room here in the Education Center at the Kansas City Zoo. Derek, what is the Resource Room?
Well, Kate, the Resource Room is a place where we house all of our biofacts. Basically, we have bones, skulls, pelts, feathers, and fur.
And what actually is a biofact and what do we use them for?
Well, Kate, a biofact is a material that comes from animals that we use to educate the public about these animals. So it can help us teach people about them as well as to teach us about the animals that they came from.
That's an interesting last portion that you said there, because I know that we do use a lot of different biofacts for identification purposes to help us figure out what type of animal we're actually looking at. So today we're going to learn a little bit about skulls and how to identify what type of animal it's come from. So morphology is the study of the parts of an animal, and today we're going to look a little bit more in depth on skulls. So there are 3 main facets that we're going to use to help us ID what specific animal we're looking at when we see a skull. The first one is going to deal with its eyes.
So taking a look here at this skull, we can notice that the orbitals, or the eye sockets, are placed in the front of the skull. This is going to indicate that this animal likes to hunt. It's a predator, so it needs to have depth perception in order to catch its food. It gains that depth perception from having a slight overlap in the field of vision between these 2 eyes. It needs to have that in order to be able to catch its food. Taking a look at a different animal, a prey animal, we notice that the orbitals are located on the sides of the skull. This allows the animal to have greater width of vision, so it can see further around itself, but it lacks that depth perception that the predator species has. A good way to keep this in mind is that eyes in the front, it likes to hunt. Eyes on the side, it's gonna wanna hide.
The second one, which you're probably not going to use often, is where the foramen magnum is located. So that is the hole that is on the back of the skull where the spine would usually connect to. Any hole that is toward the bottom of the skull is going to indicate that that animal probably walked upright. So the one that Derek has in his hand right now is from a chimp. We know that chimps are going to walk a little bit more upright. The one that he's going to pull out now, which is a Tasmanian devil, has that foramen magnum a little bit higher up, which means that that animal probably walked on all 4s. And then the third and final, and probably the most important, is going to be dentation.
So dentation, or teeth, is going to be really important in IDing these skulls. So here in the front we have our incisors. These are going to be used for cutting and gnawing food, followed by our canines, which are used for piercing or sometimes for self-defense. And then lastly we have our premolars and our molars. These are going to be used for grinding up food.
So now that we have a little bit of an idea of what dentation looks like, let's take a look at some more skulls to figure out what those animals eat. Teeth come in all shapes and sizes, and they help an animal eat specific foods. So in front of me right now, I have 3 specific lower jaws from different animals that eat different types of food. The first one that we're going to look at is this big one right in the middle. So this is an animal that has a ton of flat premolars and molars in the back. They don't really have those front canines that we talked about with animals that are going to probably eat more along the lines of meat. And they do have some flat incisors at the front, probably for grasping specific food. So an animal that has a ton of flat premolars and molars in the back is probably going to be an herbivore. So an herbivore is going to be an animal that eats plants, allows them to grind and chew on whatever type of food that they are going to be eating. The second one we're going to look at is much different. This one hardly has any flat premolars or molars in the back. In fact, they're pretty sharp. And now we can actually see some pretty prominent canines at the bottom and some sharp incisors at the front. You're probably already guessing what this might belong to. It is a carnivore, so an animal that is going to primarily eat meat. And in the middle, one that does a little bit of both, much like us, is going to be an omnivore. So it has those incisors in the front for grasping food. It has canines, not very prominent, but they're there. And then it has sharper premolars and molars in the back for grinding. So it can eat a little bit of everything. So looking at these 3 mandibles, you can probably start to guess how you can ID animals using specific teeth structures. Let's put your knowledge to the test and actually have you guess on a couple of skulls we'll bring out.
All right, now that we've learned a little bit about dentition, we're gonna take a look here at these animal skulls and see if we can identify if they're a carnivore, an herbivore, or an omnivore. So here with our first skull, we can see that it's got some prominent canine teeth, followed with some pretty sharp premolars and molars. There are some incisors here in the front, but they don't seem to be too prominent for the dentition of the animal as a whole, so they probably don't use those incisors a whole lot. Which animal do you think this is? Do you think it's a carnivore, an herbivore, or an omnivore? If you guessed carnivore, you'd be correct. This is a carnivore. We can tell it's a carnivore because of these really prominent canine teeth. It means it's gonna be used for piercing its food and kind of making the kill. All right, our next skull here, we're gonna take a look at, is right next to me. Do we think that this animal is an herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore? Here we can see that it's got some pretty pronounced incisors. I don't see too pronounced of canines, if the prevalence of them at all. And then I see a large row of premolars and molars. So that means that this animal probably does a lot of grinding and crushing with its food. So taking your best guess, do you think this animal is gonna be an omnivore, a carnivore, or an herbivore? If you guessed herbivore, you'd be correct. Here we have a zebra. So this animal is not native to Missouri, but it might be closely related to a deer or a horse. Moving on from this skull to our next skull, we're gonna take a look at. We're gonna guess if this is an herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore. Here we can see that there's some pretty pronounced incisors as well as some canine teeth. Taking a look back here, we also have the presence of some premolars and molars that seem to be pretty prominent as well. So, using your best guess, do you think this animal is a herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore? If you guessed an omnivore, you'd be correct. Here we have a raccoon. This is an opportunistic animal, meaning it feeds on a wide variety of different foods. So it needs to have the presence of those different variety of teeth in order to help it to eat those different kinds of foods. All right, and then lastly, we're gonna move on to this skull here. This is very unique in the sense that this animal's got some very prominent incisors. We also have the lack of canine teeth and the prominence of these molars in the back. So this is actually a rodent skull. This is from a beaver. So beavers are herbivores, whereas a lot of rodents are actually omnivores. Taking a look here at these teeth on the front, these really prominent incisors, we notice just firsthand is that how orange they are. They're orange because of the prevalence of iron in their enamel. Because there's iron in there, it makes the outside really hard, but the inside is soft. Because the outside is harder than the inside, these teeth self-sharpen whenever they bite down. This is really important for keeping their teeth sharp so that they're able to chew on their foods and especially tough things like trees that they're trying to get down. Along with this, it's really important for them to constantly be chewing on things because their teeth never stop growing. If their teeth keep growing and they don't chew on things, they might even grow into the top of their mouth, which would be very painful and disruptive for the animal.
Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about skulls and how to ID them. Comment below any skulls that you've come across in your hikes while being home. And we can't wait to see you when we reopen again here at the Kansas City Zoo.